Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. It is 5 p.m. for me. I don't know what time it is for you, but whatever it is, happy midday Saturday. Uh, yeah. Today I'm gonna be beating a dead horse. Uh, Pretty savagely, I might say. I think. Um, if you haven't been a part of the drama on this little 217 subscriber channel, I did have one video that hit 81,000 views. So other than that, I think the algorithm, liked me a little bit and then told me to fuck off. But that's good. We just keep doing what we're doing. This is a side project. This is for fun. This is what it is. Ooh, car went by. Very loud. So we're beating a dead horse. Once again, I'm having a conversation about gender. Yesterday, I spoke with John J. Parker. And today, I'm again speaking with John J. Parker and as well May Starwalk. And if you haven't seen my video about calling him a clown for his rebuttal, well, I did. So that's what's happening. Basically, we're having a major disagreement. I don't think I'm having a major disagreement. I think he's being dishonest because he's not willing to actually address the topic of gender and sexuality in a meaningful way, and is almost perpetuating this type of social culture war over the concept of gender and sex as distinct from one another. Yes, Jack, sex. Yes, they are different, but the but the argument here is just so it's stupid, for lack of a better word. But I think this fight's important. This chat is too much. Hey, is Killian still alive? I heard. Oh my god, I can't pay attention to this chat right now. Well, we're having this discussion over gender and sex, and we're consistently talking about it. I believe that Mace is acting in bad faith, and John believes that he can somehow mediate between the both of us. So I'm willing to have the conversation. I know I haven't been doing as much scripted videos, and I've been kind of doing more of these live stream type of things. If you like it, comment that you like it. If you don't like it, let me know that you want me to go back to more long form, thought out, type of quick couple of word essays, video essays that I'm doing, and I'll do those again. It's just they're difficult. There was a few. The Shavuos just was on Thursday, which is a Jewish holiday. Work seasons, ending of semesters and stuff. So I've been pretty swamped with all that other things, but I will get back to doing a more thorough videos exploring philosophical, cultural, social, and psychological topics. I recently saw a movie called a TV show called Made, and I found that very apropos with the current abuse allegations with Steven Crowder. So I'm working on a video, or at least have an idea of a video, regarding, again, talking about abuse, bringing some psychology into it, bringing some real information, getting videos of what abuse actually looks like, contrasting that with notions in television and media, and having a real nice time about that. I also, I'm going to be working on a video about neo-fascism in America, which will be really, really cool, and I can't wait for that. Oh, thank you for the subscribe. I appreciate that a lot. Well, so Peter Rokvist is asking, is sex biological and immutable? Is sex biological? Well, sex in the current academic jargon refers to biological things. Immutable, is it not non-changing? Can one change their sex? I guess is the question that he's asking. Let me just double check exactly what immutable means. I don't want to, not understand it exactly. Incapable of change? I mean, maybe in the future, right? With specific gene splicing, if that's even a thing. I'm just going off my science fiction words. But in a science fiction way, there might be some sort of things that can change a person's sex. But here, this is where things get a little complicated. If we reduce sex to simply mean chromosomes, then sex becomes binary. And we know that sex isn't binary, ends up behaving, at least when sexologists and sociologists and people who study this stuff, medical science, says that sex is bimodal because it's not just reducible to your chromosomes, right? It also depends on like secondary sex characteristics. Um, and this distinction generally, I think, is very important to understand that sex is, on a bimodal distribution. It's not binary, so it has variation within it. So maybe it is immutable, right? Is sex immutable right now? I would say that yes. I would say sex is immutable. I would say people don't really get their sex changed. They get gender reassignment surgery or things to align with their gender because at the end of the day, your body. But this is where things become complicated, right? Because on one hand, sex can refer to hormone flushes or testosterone or all these other things that are complementary to your specific chromosome, right? The chromosomal complements. And if you get hormones as you develop, and if you change your secondary sex characteristics, are you changing your sex? I don't know if I'm really like qualified to talk about that. I don't have expertise in this field, which is medicine, biology, and this stuff. My expertise are psychology and philosophy. But yeah. Do you think the word man or woman refers to sex or gender? And what do you think radical left-wing people think those words refer to? Okay. So not just my opinion, but the Yale School of Medicine and the current understanding of the intersection of biology, psychology, and culture and society have created a distinction between the word man, woman, and male, female. It used to be that man and woman could refer to sex. Today, man and woman refer to gender, and this is how the words are used today, Lewis. I'm waiting on John J. Parker to start the room about with me and Mace talking about it. So until then, I'm just here chatting. So maybe we'll put up a video or talk about some other idea. That should be fun. Oh, it's really nice to see Peter and Lewis. I haven't seen you in the chat before, so welcome. And I hope that like, subscribe, and enjoy my content. And if you want me to talk about anything, you can always send a question and ask me. For those who don't know, Jack, by the way, is awesome rapper. He has some really, really good tunes that I'm not this video, but when I edit it, I'm going to put them in the intro, which is going to be nice. Let me message John J. Parker right now and see what's happening with the stream. Oh, Peter Izrosky, by the way. Okay. So I love you, my bro. Big hearts. So Peter is probably one of the most enjoyable human beings to talk with. Always calm-headed, always leveled. Really, really, really a class act. Love the man. And people don't recognize that his style of conversation also forces you to really think through your ideas and really become clean about them and really become nuanced and concise because Peter here and Orosky just asked you good fucking questions, right? He's not going to let anyone, just get away with bullshit fucking questions or bullshit notions. He needs to understand something to the core, which is both good, but also has its drawbacks. Really, really good trait to have. So I know John just started his room, but before we get to that room, maybe we'll just pull up something real quick. Let me get some of this going. OBS is annoying to use sometimes. Okay. Oh, the room should have opened up, actually. Should I just go straight into the room or make them wait for me? What should I do? I think we should make them wait. Be a little spicy about it. I don't know. Maybe not. It's not the nicest thing in the world. Let's transition. Let's go into the room. Oh, I just have to unmute me. I see his face, but he hasn't unmuted me, so. Hello, John. John, gotta unmute me, buddy. Unmute me.
Hello, hello.
Oh God, he's so loud. He's always so loud.
Unmute you? Nah. I'm not. You aren't muted, Dandan. I have not forced muted you. You should be able to talk.
I apologize. I thought that I was force muted. This is my issue.
It's a bit of self-victimization going on. It's okay.
What? No, not at all. No self-victimization here. Very interesting.
Well, you said like I was muting you. I was just fucking with you. We are sharing on Twitter where I know that like my host Twitter account is just bursting at the seams with followers.
Is it? Is it actually bursting at the seams? Oh, okay.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Neither is the Facebook one. Although that one generates some actual traffic, interestingly enough. May should be here, unless I'm like completely dumb and don't understand how time zones work, but I'm pretty sure.
Oh, come on, stop it. You didn't actually mess that
No,
up.
I'm pretty sure I'm right. Like, I'm very sure that I did it right.
Okay.
He said 2100 UTC, which converts. I used the website and everything. So.
Okay. Well, if you use the website, then it should be good.
Hey, I used the internet. The internet never tells me anything that's not true.
Especially if you use ChatGPT.
Yeah, I love ChatGPT for being a fair and unbiased source of information.
Sure.
It told me that it was fair and unbiased. Actually, it told me repeatedly. I've actually pinned it down.
I do find that I mostly see like the conversations around ChatGPT appear and like using it as like metrics for coming from like really right-wing circles. I think ChatGPT is like, it's an AI. It's just gonna regurgitate whatever language models or information the company has given it access to. Like, why would anyone ever use that? It just it makes no sense.
I think that the selection source of information that it's been exposed to is somewhat biased because it has to be. Because like by necessity, including
it can't not be. It can't not be. It can't not be.
Right, but I've noticed that the bias tends to go a certain direction, even if you're not doing crazy right-wing conspiracy.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be edgy right here and be like, it's not my fault. Facts lean left, but.
Yeah, of course. It's awfully convenient when like your guys have like done a long march through the institutions for the last 100 years and get to decide.
The institutions are just fact based, you know.
It's again very convenient for the person.
Evolution is left wing. Climate change, psychology. What can we do?
Well, half of climate change. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, no, we're not. I'm just being edgy and annoying. Yeah. Let me mute real quick and respond to someone in the chat who's asking me a question.
Why do you have to mute for that?
Okay, fine. So this person named Lewis is asking, so if a country is at war and declares men to be mobilized for military purposes, we are all to interpret that as males to be mobilized, right? ? I would say currently, yes, that's what that would mean. I have no issue with that understanding. That's completely fine. Again,
yeah, so that's kind of the thing. I want to have you guys steelman each other. If Mace is a no-show, I don't really want to have to stand in for Mace. I don't really want to do that. I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, did you message him?
Yeah. I messaged him on Discord, but
so let's just double check that it's actually the correct time. So he said 2100.
I know him. He said 2100 UTC. And he is UTC, and we're in Eastern Standard Time right now.
Yeah, we're EST.
Where are you? Like, give me a state.
New York.
You're in New York? Oh, that's right. I knew that. I knew you were in New York.
Yeah, it's 5 p.m. No, I'm not. I'm downstate. I'm in actual New York. Like I hear the planes flying over me going to JFK like 4 times.
You're actually in the city? Jesus.
Right outside. I used to be right outside.
Jesus, I'm so sorry for whatever the hell your rent is.
Don't get me started on that life.
Yeah.
I mean, just car insurance itself is insane because I'm that close to New York City. I'm literally 5 minutes away from JFK.
Am I wrong? Hold on. Benson is telling me I'm wrong.
About what?
About the time. Am I wrong? This would be embarrassing.
No, I just looked it up. 2100 UTC is 5 p.m. I just looked it up.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not wrong.
It's
2100. Oh, yeah. 2100 converts to 9 p.m. Because 2100 is military time.
And Mace is 4 hours ahead of us, right? Is in England.
He's actually 5 because he's in UTC +1. But.
So if he's in UTC plus, that's what it was. UTC. He said UTC. Did you put
UTC? No. He said 2100 UTC, and then he said I personally am in UTC +1, so I'll be on at 10 p.m. my time. But he asked me to convert it from UTC. I don't know why. He was trying to make it easier on me, I suppose. I don't know, but I know I'm right.
We either have 40 minutes to just bullshit until he shows up, or.
I've DM'd him, man. I wanted you guys to steelman each other. I mean, I can steelman both of your positions. I'm pretty sure.
I think I can steelman. I think you can steelman Mesa's position.
Yeah, I know. I kind of want him to steelman yours.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's not gonna be here, what can we talk about? That's not the topic. We could talk about random shit.
I don't know. It has to be. Why I have a little dirtiness on my shirt? That's upsetting. Whatever.
Just fill in for him, John, says Nivik. I don't hold Mace's position. That's the thing.
Yeah, Mace's.
I mean, I kind of do, but I do it for different reasons.
Yeah, because you don't want to cede ideological ground. That's a whole other thing.
Correct, and I also think that its gender is a kind of imprecise term that you could break up into like 3 different terms, and it would be a lot more clear.
Oh, by the way, Daltsu, I know you're here in the chat. After I'm done with this conversation, do you want to jump on through Discord and we can have our discussion about gender and I can hear your perspectives? Let me know in the chat. Daltsu and I are supposed to talk about gender. Another one. It's just been a gender-a-thon.
Does Daltsu disagree?
Daltsu, he agrees with me, but we have like a technical disagreement maybe on like the praxis of what the goal in society would be, whether it be to recognize gender as something important, something to recognize, or something to abolish and get rid of. I'm much more in the like, let's get rid of gender. We don't need it. Screw it.
I think Daltsu and I might have similar positions actually on that. Oh, okay. I mean, I suppose we can talk about it if Mace isn't going to show up.
Why is Mace ducking? Come on, Mace.
So I don't think it's on purpose.
No, I don't.
I'm gonna assume good faith here.
Maybe try to ring him on Discord. Maybe that would wake his phone up.
Actually, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea. And if this doesn't work, then I'll just fill in for him, and we'll just have another conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
no, my whole chat was labeled literally gender discussion.
We're ringing.
We're ringing. We're getting him on. Okay.
We need to turn this into a meme format. I think that's how you know when you made it, is when you become a meme format.
Sure.
Yeah, he's not picking up. Yeah, Benson, just keep trying him, I suppose. Okay, I'll stand in for Mace, and I'll steelman Mace's position, but I'm not going to argue for the specifics. I'm going to argue for what I believe, because that's
sure, that's fine. That's fine. We can talk about gender again.
So Mace's position is that essentially gender is the same word as sex. He's expressed to me that he believes that for etymological reasons, gen as in Genesis as in create, der as in epidermis as in skin as in flesh, generation. It's regarding sex specifically. But the real reason that he says that it's important is just because gender is used interchangeably with the word sex colloquially, and therefore that's what it means. And if academia has a different weird jargony term, that's fine. But he doesn't have to buy it. He can reject it if he wants, and he would have more people on his side to reject it. I'm pretty sure that's his position. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's his position too. Most people use this word. I'm not gonna not use this word and confuse people. Yada yada yada, and move forward. Yeah.
Right. So,
but I will say that I would say that etymologically, gender did start in the 1300, and it meant kind, sort, class, or class or kind of persons or things sharing certain traits. It wasn't until I wasn't. Oh, sex usually comes from the other thing. So gender only in the 14th century became used to being like bring forth or whatever it is, and it wasn't until like
Genesis means like generate means create, and then flesh epidermis feels.
I mean, sure, you
biological.
can play that thing, but gender wasn't biological or wasn't considered biological up until like the 18th century and 19th century, where they were trying to essentialize specific social phenomena into biology. They did it with ethnicity, they did it with race, they did it with gender, where then it became like a disorder of the mind if a female was behaving in unwomanly like way, so she would get like lobotomies or whatever it is, electroshock therapy.
Well, I'm not in support of those two things.
No, but that gives you an idea about the usage of gender throughout time. I mean, Germans, by the way, I know in the Pangburn Discord, Milkshake, he's from France, like, oh, my language is gendered. It's always gendered. How am I supposed to work around this gender? It's always gendered. It's always gendered. And in Germany, they have, I was reading this up, that they have 3 genders in speech: male, female, and none. They called it a neutered language, where it becomes like an it rather than a she or a he. Hebrew is also extremely gendered. Everything is he. A television is like a she. A table is a he. We don't really have the language for.
I'm not aware of any language that doesn't have like a neutral option, or that doesn't have like some words that are. Because I know nothing about. I took Spanish for like a little bit, and I remember that being a thing. Is like you have gendered language, male, female, or masculine, feminine, more accurately. And then there was just some that just wasn't at all. So is that like really unique, or because I thought that was kind of the default?
No, it's not. I mean, I can't. In Hebrew, do we have like no? You don't have a. It's there aren't objects without gender to them.
Yeah,
it's not like we have an it or something. Zeh, I guess, but not really. You don't speak that way, like, because the verbs and the adjectives around these nouns are all gendered. Every single one. Even numbers themselves have genders. So
here. My position is that Mace is right pragmatically in terms of how the world should work, but his reasons are not very good. To my mind, I think that gender. I think that popular conservatives have actually misplayed this to a quite a large extent, saying that there is nothing to being a man or a woman other than your sex. I think that's wrong. I think that there's personality, your internal belief about what you are. Obviously, that can be different based on usually gender dysphoria, and then social roles and all that sort of thing. And to pretend like that's not real is stupid. But I think where might disagree is that those things are deeply rooted in sex, and society kind of should try to keep people's sex and gender together to some extent. And that's kind of where I come from it. And then in terms of the word gender itself, it feels weird because I just listed like 3 different things. You can have personality, you can have social roles, and then you can have like internal like
but gender and
those are like 3 separate things that we should probably talk about separately, right?
But you can but those personality and is these all things like they're all like circles that have like overlapping areas, but gender is much more than just that, because
well, what is it besides those 3 things that I just listed according to you,
other than list them again? Identity,
other than
personality,
like self-image, like if you feel like a woman, like this is the type of thing that will make people want
that would be gender identity. That would be gender identity.
Okay, so there's personality, which is just a more masculine or feminine personality according to averages that correspond to being a male or a female. And then you have social roles.
But that's understanding gender as a discursive. Is it discursive? Forget the word.
It doesn't matter what the word is because you're going to need to define it to me.
No, anyway. It does matter to me because I want to get it right. Sure, there's continuous data points and maybe something with a D. Discursive. I forget the name. It's on the tip of my tongue. But the idea is that these distinct categories are ones that don't move and shape. right? So if you look at like at a bell curve, for example, and you have like the norm, the middle, you can identify that as the gender, but that moves and changes all the time. So gender as a concept is not just like the instantiation or that specific moment. It's how does gender, what makes gender move? What is actually this gender? What's actually happening here?
Yeah, I'm still not understanding why you have to roll them together though, right? Because you could just say like, oh,
Because
the masculine or feminine personality type can change.
because gender is almost like a
I would say that if the natural, because you have to be a little bit careful here, right? Because what would be the average masculine or feminine personality type changes based on culture, and I think that
what changes culture?
no, I understand where you're coming from.
Technological development, whatever. So if you and I were sociologists and we're going on and trying to discover,
Like social pressures, like the rise of the birth control pill probably like massively shifted.
I mean,
Like
it changes
what the
it changed
average
the way it changed the way people thought gender specific sexes should act, or specific people should act. The gender roles that they should have. Gender is much more of a social force, a social form of sex, as well as
right.
identity, because these two things interplay on one another. It's not one or the other, it's their interplay. It's how they all work together in this. So the concept of gender is not just like my personality or society. It's all of these things together, and that is distinct from sex. That is not identity. It is not personality. It is all of those things.
No, I understand that that's what it means. I'm saying that I don't like that. I would prefer to just talk about things individually. You have sex, you have identity, you have personality, and you have social roles. And then if you want to add more categories. And the reason why I don't like that is because these three categories mean wildly different things. Like, for example, I think it is perfectly okay for a woman to have a more masculine personality type. 10% of women have it. Fine. If you want to be in a less masculine like social role, I think that's probably not great for you, but okay.
Yeah.
But and then you can have like self-identity where like I literally feel as if I am a woman, which is where I start to raise an eyebrow. And putting all of these things under the same term feels weird. It feels semantically overloaded to me because when people say gender, I don't really know what they mean, and all the different things they could mean have wildly different implications.
Gender, because gender itself isn't a thing. It's not a discursive notion.
Yes,
It's a continuous one. It's a continuous data point. So but let's say you're a sociologist.
Well, it's not just about no. It's not just about the
because
fact that the data. No, hold on. It's not just about the fact that the data points are continuing. It's about the facts that the sets of data there's multiple different sets of data that we're looking at, corresponding to completely different concepts.
No, we don't. Remember when sociologists say, "Oh, what is a woman?" Well, it's a person who identifies as a woman. Well, that's how you measure it. You go out and find who is a woman here, and they raise their hand. Like, what does it mean for you to be a woman? And you graph it down. You write it down.
Because that's not a good answer to the question. What is a woman is a person. The better answer for somebody in the left wing circle, this is not my definition, would be a person who takes on the social roles, personality, or traits commonly associated with females. Would be a better answer because then you're not circular.
No, it's not circular, because I'm not saying that a woman is defined as a person who identifies as a woman. What is a woman? If I'm going to point out what is a woman, like try to find me a phone, for example. What is a phone? I'm going to, it's a telecommunications device, blah, blah. How do I identify it? Well, it's a phone. How do I identify what is a woman? Well, an individual that identifies as a woman. There are some females who don't identify as women who are like, I'm a girl, I'm not a woman yet, but they're still XX.
Okay, adult females.
Okay, but not all adult females identify as women.
Right, but those people can be wrong. So this is where we're really
but this is because now you are not essentializing. You are what's the word? Instantiating the norm. You're looking at the middle of the bell curve.
Congratulations.
And you say, I've done,
correct.
but it's not I don't know the word. I forget. I lost the word. It's not a descriptive. Gender is not just descriptive. It's not just discursive. It's not just one thing, and anything outside of that falls out. It's continuous and it's changing.
Okay. I
So
I'm not sure what
just
you're trying to
because
say.
you don't recognize them or they fall outside of the middle of the bell curve, but the whole bell curve is woman. Even the tail ends where it might overlap with some people who consider this with men, that is still a woman because
Well,
their
see, but these
concept of a
bell curves
woman
are
falls
different. See,
there.
this is the problem with the term gender. It's because it's too wide. If you mean the bell curve in terms of personality, sure,
No, not
you can.
personality, gender identity. The way in which
Okay,
people are
right,
the
gender
norm.
identity. Yeah,
Personality isn't normative. Personality is descriptive. We're talking about
yeah. This is the part. This
normativeness.
is the part. This is the part that I 100% reject. I do not believe that because you feel as if you are a woman, that makes you a woman. My position is that it is necessary but not sufficient to be a member of the male or female sex in order to be a man or a woman, respectively. So you have to be one of those
Yeah,
things.
but
And then
that's
on top of that, there's the other parts of gender.
yeah, but that's a normative claim. Normative claims are non-descriptive. It's how ought someone behave. So if a woman is not a descriptive term, it's if you agree that gender is a social construct, and you agree that gender moves throughout time, and gender is how someone should behave, right? Then if that changes, if that moves, it's a normative claim, and it's no longer descriptive. So because it's a non-descriptive term, the norm depends on who it is. It's subjective.
I'm not, yeah, how they should act, sure.
That's what
What they
gender is.
are,
What they are,
right,
but
but no, 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 it's not. It's not. This again. This is why I don't like the looping of these things together. Personality and social roles is involved with how people are acting or how they
how
should
they
act.
are acting.
Gender identity is the imposition of not how I'm acting, but what I am. Those are different.
How I believe that is my authentic way to represent myself in the world. How ought I dress? How ought I behave? How ought I be? And some people say I ought
No,
to
you
behave
no no no
like a
no. You
woman.
you snuck one in. You snuck one in there.
No,
You
I
said
didn't.
how ought I be?
Yeah.
Be
How
see
what does it
that's
mean
a
to
bridge too
be?
far for
What
me.
does it mean to be? How I should be in the world. How I should represent
No, be,
myself.
you
How I
mean
should
act.
That's what I meant by be. How would I act?
Okay,
How would
well,
I
I see
Sure.
those are
When I
different
say
things.
how would I be, I'm not talking about an ontological being come into existence. How ought I act in the world? That's what gender is referring to. And women in our society have these specific notions of how they ought behave, whether wear high heels, be
Correct.
nurturing. I don't identify.
Less and less so, by the way,
Yeah, because the
over
concept of
time.
woman is changing. So
Unfortunately.
if we would measure the concept of woman, if our job was to measure it, we can say most people believe that the gender roles of women is to behave in this or specific way. Some people
Yep,
will say
that's
that
fine.
women only females get to behave like women, and then we construct society and laws and traditions around that. You and I
Yeah,
will
I'm
disagree.
not of that opinion.
Yeah, we
Well,
will.
I think generally that's true, but I think we should also allow exceptions.
Yeah, I mean,
To
there's tons of
behavior,
exceptions. Yeah,
but that does not mean that all of a sudden because you are acting as if you are a woman, that means that I need to validate the idea that that's what you are.
I
Because
mean,
again, my definition of woman and man involves male and female as necessary but insufficient parts
so if
of
now
doing
that's
that.
your conception of you're the one who's
Right,
essentializing
and I'm
gender
gonna tell, and we're
into
gonna have this argument
biology.
about why my conception is better.
I mean,
Um,
but the
but
problem with that conception is that conception doesn't take into account people who are genderqueer, people who
sure it
don't
does.
fall. No, it doesn't, because when you build psychological models, you have tons of statistical noise. But when you make a distinction between gender and sex, that statistical noise can be accounted for. This is why medicine, like the Yale School of Medicine and other medical institutions, when you look at the data and do data analysis, making a distinction of sex and gender yields pragmatic theoretical results and lets
Well,
you
by the way,
analyze the data.
well, for the record, I am making that distinction. Like, for the record, like, I'm not saying that gender and sex are exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
I'm
but
very much making that
they're
distinction.
linked. They're obviously linked, right?
Yeah, to a huge extent. And I'm not saying that there's no distinction there. I'm saying when it comes specifically to people suffering from gender dysphoria, we shouldn't categorize that as part of gender. We should categorize that as something else. I don't think that that should be given the same level. well, I'm going to use the words that are going to get me in trouble. I don't think we should validate that or legitimize that in the same way that we do people who have like more masculine or feminine personality types, or who like decide that they want to be a stay-at-home dad, or like whatever.
Not all, but not all trans people have gender dysphoria. You know that, right?
I know that that's a claim. I'm not sure.
No,
if
it's a reality. There are people who say, they go ahead and they dress as women. They want to act like women. They feel like they're women, but they don't suffer from the distress of having the incongruency in their life, or not being. They're not suffering from gender dysphoria. That's like a psychological fact.
Well, again, you'd have to show me what you're talking about.
So gender dysphoria is a specific, is like a something you can get diagnosed with, but not all trans people suffer from gender dysphoria but are still trans.
Okay. My apologies then. I'll just say trans then, because that's really what I mean.
Okay.
If gender dysphoria is just the diagnosis of being trans and being distressed about it.
No. Like, it's if you're trans, and not all. I actually don't know if there's people who have gender dysphoria who aren't trans. I do know that some people with BPD can blame their genitals for like their symptoms, and sometimes you might think they're dysphoric, but that's a whole other thing.
I actually knew somebody who was kind of like that. Actually, hindsight 2020. That's weird.
Maybe.
I knew somebody who had bipolar depression who was like kind of.
I was talking about borderline personality disorder, but
playing in the. Oh shit. Well, never mind. I was wrong. Sorry, I misunderstood your acronym. My bad. Yeah. So again, even if you genuinely believe that you are a woman, or that you feel like a woman, but you don't happen to be distressed about it, I still just don't think that that's like true. I suppose. I don't think there's a truth claim when it comes to whether or not you have a more masculine or feminine personality, or are acting that out. I don't think that there's like a real truth claim that about social roles, because that's all ought stuff, right? It's like how ought you act, how ought you express yourself. That's all fine. But if you're telling me that this person feels this way internally and acts stuff out, that's all odd stuff. But if you're telling me that this person is actually in this category, like as a truth claim, then I'm not going to buy that.
Well, what is the category of woman? What goes into the category of woman? If woman is the social role and the normative, the ought, what goes into that ought category?
So the ought category, at its root, again, it's necessary to be female. And then on top of it comes with, and then on top of that often comes with things like a more feminine personality type.
So that would be your that would be your understanding of of how women, what belongs in the category of women. But now let's take the seat and put on our little sociologist hats.
The sociologists are scientists.
No, they're scientists. They're social scientists. They actually do statistics and methodology. They actually do put the work in.
Sure.
So
I'm messing around. Yeah.
So someone said, this is not a debate or an interview. This is a discussion, and we're passionate about the things we're talking, and we're discussing it back and forth.
Yeah. Synergy says people need to agree on definitions. This whole conversation is about trying to figure out a fucking definition. That's usually when people have a disagreement and they don't understand that they're using different definitions, it's very upsetting and kind of annoying, but we know that we don't share the same definition, and that's what the argument's about. It's says it sounds like Aha's out of the room, so it doesn't matter. We don't care. It's specifically distress, conflict, gender dysphoria. Well, I mean, no surprises there. I don't, honestly, it's news to me that you could feel as if you are in the wrong body and not be distressed in some way. You can.
I mean, they have distress, but it's not to the level where it's not. John, if you're sad and you have a down mood, does that mean you're depressed?
No.
Exactly. You can have distress without suffering from gender dysphoria. You can.
Right, but I would feel like that distress would be all. I mean, to me, if I felt genuinely as if I was in the wrong like physical body, I don't know how that would not be constantly distressing.
Well, not all trans people feel like they're in the wrong physical body.
What?
Yeah. I'm not making stuff up. You want me to pull it up right now?
I'm a big trust but verify kind of guy.
So let's verify. Let's verify right now.
I mean, send it to me like over Discord or whatever.
No, I can put it. Trans people. especially if they get early affirmation. Yeah, myth number 4. Not all trans people want to medically transition or change their body. Yeah, I know this because of my work in school. Like my degree is in psych, so it's people who identify as trans, who are okay, for example, with their genitalia is also a thing. They might just want like smaller boobs or something. They might just want to put on makeup and dress like a woman, wear high heels, but they're not interested in like changing their body.
Sounds kind of like drag as opposed to being outright trans.
No, you can be trans and do. I mean, there are some people who believe that a woman doesn't need to wear high heels and wear a dress, right?
Right, and well, that's kind of my problem for you. Actually, I wanted to put this on you for a second. Is that if woman is a set of social standards or personality, do you run into the problem of a female who is like kind of rejects those, like a female who's like, I don't know, like a executive somewhere and has like a very masculine type personality? Does that person cease to be a woman precisely?
No,
Or
because I am not going to take my normative schemas or your normative schemas or anyone's normative schemas to instantiate a norm by which I define women. Anybody's schemas to me goes on that bell curve. Anyone who identifies as a woman and says this is how women ought act is a woman.
Okay, so that's at root. That's really what it is just the self-identification is what ultimately defines it in relation to an individual person.
And then because then you look at the way people in society understand what it means to be a woman, and I mean, these are the attitudes because people talk about this all the time. Who enforces women's dress code?
Isn't that kind of weird? Isn't that kind of weird that somebody could be wildly off base or like wildly far away from what society considers to be a woman, on any number of axes, and like just not conform to that societal thing at all, and then still say despite the fact that I express none of the traits associated with this category, I am still within this category.
Yeah, I mean,
is that not a weird thing?
No, because for example, Beyonce, a self-employed boss lady who's like tough, whatever it is, those notions used to not be what a woman was. Today, you would be hard pressed to find someone and say women shouldn't be business owners, women shouldn't be home making money, women shouldn't be going out and performing on stage and being. You would hardly find that. But if you go, but if you go, but if you go 60, she's a woman. She's not just a female. She considers herself to be a woman. This is how
female,
and she would advocate that females should act that way.
Dandan, I'm saying not that if people do not express some of the traits associated that they don't belong to the category. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying somebody who doesn't express any of the traits. In Beyonce's case, like basically infinite. Like I can list a few for you, but
give me so those are the traits
traits of being a man. In terms of personality, you tend to be more disagreeable while also being, I think it's more disagreeable. I know you're less neurotic if you're a man. And then other personality things, social personality associations, even if they're not actual personality associations, is being stronger and tougher and more decisive.
I mean, and those personalities things also, but those personality also stratify people who are transgender.
Sure, but what I'm not. I understand that. Like, I get it that there's a lot of individual trait crossover. What I'm saying is that if you express none of the traits that cross over, other than the self-identity thing, but if you basically express no traits commonly associated, like let's say I'm transgender for a second, and basically my personality is the same as it is, which is, at last I checked, it's prototypically masculine. Although, that kind of bites me in the ass sometimes, unfortunately. And I'm still male and I still fulfill like masculine roles. I still want to, protect and provide in the long term, stuff like that. But so basically the only thing within my gender or my sex that is identifying me as a woman is my say-so. Is that not weird? Is that not weird to claim to be a part of a category when you're not associated with any of the traits common to the category? Is that not a strange thing?
It is weird, but would you tell a female who is like wears suits and is prototypically male, and she says, no, I'm a woman because I think women should behave this way, right? I don't think it's because I'm a female. I just think that women should behave this way.
Well, of course not, because that's just one thing. That's one trait. I'm not saying one trait
but the
being
thing is,
crossed over suddenly removes you from the category.
these
I'm
traits,
saying no traits.
but these are your traits. These are your norms. Norms don't have a center. Norms aren't. There's no.
I feel like you're misunderstanding me here, man. I'm not like actually. I think that if anything, your definitions make it a little bit of a problem, because I'm not saying that you cannot have some crossover in terms of traits. I'm saying that if you have none of the traits, that's weird. Like if a woman is like, I'm a high-powered business executive, I have a masculine personality, and I do all.
I like to put on a strap on and fuck other women. Sure.
Well, that's an orientation thing. That's a little.
No, it could be a part of the way in which a gender should act. People should act.
Well, like, isn't this a problem, right? Like, so what's she stereotypically masculine? She's the breadwinner and the guy's a stay-at-home dad, and basically she basically performs the role of a man, but says, "Oh, I'm still a woman. I'm female. I'm just like masculine."
Well, then in her idea of what it means to be a woman means you have to be female. She's essentializing it, and sure, that could be a part of her identity. I'm not talking about.
Okay, I think I get where we disagree now. I think I get it. Is that Yeah. Okay, you finish your sentence though. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think I know why we disagree. Is that you think because my definitions are normative that like they're kind of less legitimate?
No,
I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm trying to say is that I think that a lot of the play in the joints in terms of how men and women, I think that the fact that men and women typically act a certain way, and while that does change across time and culture, it doesn't change that much. Like femininity is still femininity across most cultures and across time to a very large degree, even though there's an awful lot of play in the joints.
Yeah, correct.
And to me, that shows that when females and men are like left in their natural state, they will very, very reliably show a type of gender expression. They will have a personality.
100%. Gender and sex are linked. They're intrinsically linked. But the point here is that when you're doing research on these topics, if you're trying to understand gender, you should not, as a researcher, instantiate it in the middle of the bell curve. You shouldn't take a standard deviation out and cut off the tails. The tails are still a part of that understanding.
Right.
If we're having a philosophical, theoretical understanding of trying to understand this phenomena, this social construct of gender, there's so many different ways for that to happen. The same thing happens with race.
You keep saying the same thing happens. I don't know what the hell you mean. Like if you're talking about bell curves on personality or on like social manifestation, I'm totally with you.
Gender. I mean, the way in which you measure gender on a bell curve is what is your gender identity? Like, let's say we take in our society, gender is bimodal. Most societies are bimodal. It stratifies around two humps when you look at the distribution, right? Oh, don't say revert to script, Al Diablo. Stop it.
He's not reverting to scripts. He's going back to first principles to try to make himself clearer.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be clear so I don't.
We're like, we're not. I know that like we do like political dunk contests on the internet. I know that's what like you're used to, but like I'm just trying to understand this fucking guy. We're not out to get each other. It's okay.
So we can think of gender as the normative social form of sex. We can think about it that way because
I'm in favor.
Huh?
I'm in favor.
Yeah, we can think about it as a social normative form of sex. How specific sex dimorphs should behave. That's fine. We can definitely think about it that way. But when you start to understand how should sexes behave, that's a normative claim. It's non-descriptive. And that because it changes and flows throughout time, so understanding gender, at least as from a macro perspective, from like an outside observer, trying to scientifically understand it, you could literally be a man and identify as a woman. That's totally possible. That should be expected. That makes sense now. When you look at it, the picture that way, it makes sense that there are these these tail ends of the bell curve, and you can actually understand them and study them medically and psychologically and
Right.
make
Well,
predictions.
I understand that it exists.
So exactly. So when you measure that, how would you measure that?
I take the amount of people who are under the impression that I like just count them. I'm like, hey, um, do you feel as if you are the opposite sex or the opposite gender? I'm like, do you
Yeah.
feel this way? And if they say
Yeah.
yes or no, I'm
What
like,
gender do you
okay,
feel like? What gender do you feel
you are
like?
under this impression. That
Yeah.
doesn't
What?
make their right, but that doesn't make their impression true. I guess
No, but
that's my
take away your
that's my
normative.
sticking point.
Take away your norms. Take away what you believe
I
makes a
don't.
woman.
I
Take away what
okay,
you believe. Take yourself out of the equation. If you take yourself out
okay.
of the equation, what is a woman?
I don't understand how to answer that question without you asking it of me.
No, no. If you're a
No, I'm not.
researcher,
I'm seriously not trying to be
no, no,
difficult.
yeah, no.
Like,
I don't think you're trying to be difficult. I think this is
yeah.
honest. I'm with you here. If you take yourself and your norms out of the equation, what does it mean? Like, who is a woman? Like you just said, you go around and you ask, do you identify with this? Is this something that
Right.
the group that you belong to? And you go, okay, that's a woman. In the same way that
Right,
a
but that does,
Jew.
no. See, no. It's not. That's not what the what a woman is the category they are identifying with, but that doesn't mean their identification is true or accurate.
But their identification is only true and accurate if you instantiate the norm by saying it's only true and accurate as it is depending on the centrality of the bell curve.
Okay. So are you asking me to basically just the way I measure this definition is by just buying into whatever subjective definition the person I'm talking to is,
No.
right? Because this feels very relativistic then at
Of
this
course
point.
it's relativistic. We're not measuring descriptions. We're not measure if we're going to try to measure the intersubjective fact of what is a woman, you have to figure out what people believe a woman is. And if you can measure that entire bell curve and you plot it, here's a woman, here's a woman, here's a woman, here's a woman, how are they different? What things are they talking about? Oh, there's some people who believe that a woman is this, but this is a very low margin. This is not usually
Amount of
what's
people who believe that. Yeah.
yeah, there's a very low, but that's still within the category of women. A similar thing happens, for example, when you look
Right.
at
Well, then you're not talking about what a woman is. You're talking about what people believe a woman is, right?
yeah, but this what's like. So if you ask someone what is a woman, you ask a sociologist what is a woman, they're gonna tell you because it's their job to research this. The only way they can make sense of it is by going out and asking, like, "Are you a woman?" Okay, why are you a woman?
Okay.
And you check it off.
Well, this is very interesting. Well, it seems like there's a bit of semantic overload, like within the question itself, because when
Yes,
most people hear the phrase "what is a woman," they're thinking about it normatively. And when you ask a
descriptively. No,
sociologist,
think
you're
about they
saying, "What
think.
is a woman?" which is basically how do you measure it? And as you say,
How do you
sociologists measure it based on, for whatever reason, they measure what a woman is based on what the people they're talking to think it is.
correct? They
But
take
that's not the
themselves
same
out.
thing as making the normative truth claim of what a woman actually is in
Correct.
terms of like
Well,
metaphysical or moral reality.
yeah, but that would be your norms. That would be your argument, and that's
No,
fine.
I get that. I get that. But
Yeah,
when you have to understand that when anybody when I hear the term question,
I
what is a
know.
woman,
I know.
I take it on its face and I
I
answer the
know.
goddamn question.
So like
But if
when
you're
when
saying like when a sociologist hears what is a woman, what they're really hearing is what do people believe a woman is in your experience? The only uniting factor is the circular definition because it's just so broad.
yeah, exactly.
The amount of things that people believe it is just so broad that your definition has to be similarly massively broad.
Exactly. There's
Okay,
no
well,
there's
we
no other
don't
way to make.
disagree because you're not forcing me to believe anything normatively.
No, I'm not.
You're just asking me to understand how sociologists define things
And why
very
they do it,
strangely.
and why they do it, because
Yeah.
it has actual pragmatic utility in research, and the pragmatic utility has proven itself in the treatment of trans people and dealing with these specific on the edge cases, because all of a sudden making that distinction allows us to account for statistical noise.
Sure. As always, we don't disagree as much as we think we do.
No,
I will say though that we might disagree on the normative stuff because I'm
I,
generally of the opinion that society has become a little bit looser with its expected norms than it really should be. I think we should be a little bit stricter. Not crazies like 50 strict, but I think we should be a little bit more have a little bit stronger guidelines and suggestions.
I think just
But
let
maybe
people do
that's
whatever they
insane.
want to do. I honestly couldn't give a fuck.
Well, that's very different opinions there. I have a question for you, like a genuine one. Is
What do I
when it
think?
comes to somebody who is a male and believes they're a woman or feels as if or like whatever person who's transgender, do you believe that it would be better if those persons sought like psychological counseling first? And
They
I
all
know there's a
do.
huge taboo
They
around,
all do.
huh?
They all do.
Okay, well, let me clarify my question. Is that I understand that there's social conditioning or there's taboo around like conversion therapy and like eyes held open, and I'm not saying that obviously, but I know that a lot of the psychological recommendations involves affirmation affirmatively. Whenever a trans person goes into
Yeah,
psychological
gender
counseling, do
affirming
you think
care
there'd
is
be
usually
any
is currently the main treatment method.
would you be willing to entertain any type of initial psychological um seeing where they see if like they can bring their mind back into alignment with their body as opposed to seeking immediately to bring the body into line with the mind,
So
at
bring
least initially, and then
so
if it like persists and they don't come out of it, then like whatever, but
so
like
what
maybe initially that would be something that's okay.
what I know about the research is that, and from my reading of the research and taking a look at it, is that gender affirming care has shown to be the best course of action.
For adults.
No, even for teens. Um,
Okay, you know the stat that I've heard. You know that most kids left alone grow out of it, right?
so if you go, for example, to you start having gender dysphoria, that's usually when a kid shows up, right?
Yeah.
And the question is, well, what's happening in your home? What's going on? By the time you get to your psychologist and your psychiatrist, there's already a problem there manifesting. And then the question is, how do we hedge this? Like, if we look at the analysis, how do we hedge this? If we start fighting the kid about stop it, end it, yada yada yada.
I'm not fighting.
No. If
I'm
by the time, by the time you
in
get
kind of
there,
a watchful waiting position.
I mean, most of the time, and people feel, oh, this okay, fine, sure. They want to dress a little differently, and that kind of goes away. By the time you're
Yeah.
going to your psychologist, that's different. We're not talking about a person. When you get to your psychologist, it's not just because you feel whatever you feel. There's usually distress happening. People who are trans who go to see a psychologist are not going to see a psychologist because they want to dress differently. They're already in psychological distress. But
Right. So
when you're already in psychological distress, that leaving it alone usually doesn't help. That's the reality.
sure, I mean that's what the therapy and the counseling is for.
Yeah,
Um,
and
but that
sometimes
doesn't. But again, my question is that is it? I don't know the answer to this because I'm pretty sure we haven't tried it in any serious way. Again, you
yeah
can
they
correct
did.
me if I'm wrong.
Yeah they did.
Well, okay, what did they try specifically?
What do you mean? No gender affirmation care and different type of care, trying to be more comfortable as a man, go out and be proud of wearing a suit. You can do it this way or that way, and it just doesn't seem to actually yield the results. Depression sustains, anxiety sustains, lower performance in school sustains, a lower inability to be social sustains. All these problems that teens experience just grow and grow and grow. And what has seemed to be the best answer to that is just affirming their gender. And when you affirm, the younger you affirm their gender, the less likely they are to go into like needing surgery. Right? They're just not going to need that because they're going to get that affirmation. They're not going to that dissonance doesn't grow as much and as much further and further and further. Gender affirming care has empirically been shown to be the most successful. I will just have to see empirical studies of the other thing happening. But you're going to have a hard time finding those because
Well, you're gonna have a hard time being allowed to do them as well. Like,
because the evidence has already been showing that gender affirming care works. It would be like me denying someone an effective form of treatment.
I how do I think I phrased this wrong when I initially asked it to you.
I mean, like
I
gender
have
affirming care can be as simple as letting a 5-year-old say, "I'm X gender," and affirming it and leaving it alone.
right, but
And if they grow
again,
out of it, they grow out of it.
okay, so here's my actual question. If we know that 80% of the time kids who express that kind of thing grow out of it, and our first thing that we do is affirm, is there not a reasonable chance that we will be affirming kids into this type of thing when they would have otherwise grown out of it.
Into what thing?
Transgenderism.
What? Does it matter if someone wants to dress a certain way, wear makeup, whatever? What's the issue? Who cares?
My issue is that if I know that the vast majority of children who express gender dysphoria, or I forget if it's gender dysphoria or transgenderism. I know that's not the same thing, but I'm just forgetting.
That's fine.
Right now. The vast majority of them who express it, if generally left alone, grow out of it by like the time they're 20. And my concern is that again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because unfortunately you know more about this than I do, so I'm kind of on the back foot. Is that pre or post-op, people who are in the category of being transgender have higher suicide rates, and that's just generally a problem.
When you're already at surgery as like a medical treatment, you're like really far gone. And I hate using that language because you're suffering from really, really severe mental issues. But
do you agree that it's a mental issue?
When you are getting top and bottom surgery as a treatment for gender dysphoria, you're suffering. You have depression, anxiety.
What if it's not for gender dysphoria? What if it's just because they feel transgender?
I mean, then you're not then there's no statistics on that as a treatment of whether it alleviates suicidality or not.
Okay, that's interesting for you to say. I get my point is that if most kids
if you're receiving gender affirming surgery because you're suffering from such high levels of depression, anxiety, whatever it is, and suicidality, and you get the surgery, even though suicidality, it's not the best treatment for suicidality, it's an amazing treatment for the other things, because that 60% that doesn't continue to be suicidal gets better, and remarkably does so. So the treatment is not for suicidality, it's for the other thing. It's for the anxiety, the dysphoria, the depression, right?
Sure. I was just kind of amazed that you called it a mental thing. I don't know.
When mental dysphoria is seriously a mental thing. It's a horrible holder. I forget the classification of what it exactly is, but it's a horrible thing to be suffering from.
Well, this leads me actually to a secondary question a little bit later. Oh God, Deathy Kyle saying something. I want to hit this point, and then I'm going to go to something in the comments that was interesting, and then I'll ask about what you're just talking about. If most kids grow out of it and we're affirming kids immediately, is there not a risk that the affirmation of kids who would have otherwise grew out of it, if it were not for the affirmation, are being put? If
the affirmation doesn't lead them to depression, anxiety, and all those problems, what's the issue?
Well, it very well might.
But you're saying mostly they grow out of it, and if gender affirming care has been shown to reduce symptoms of suicide, all of that stuff, why would we believe that the reverse is going to happen?
No. I'm not saying they grow out of just the dysphoria. I'm saying they're growing out of the dysphoria and the transgender, and they just most of the time they just grow up to be gay, right?
For those who do that, that's fine.
Before they grow, if you affirm them in feeling as if they're a member of the opposite gender or sex or whatever the hell, if you affirm them into that when they otherwise would have grown out of it,
you don't affirm them into them. Again, affirmation can be as simple as, "Oh, I feel like a girl." Okay. Just don't fight them on it. So
you don't think it's possible to affirm people into it?
I haven't seen the evidence.
Really?
I haven't seen the evidence. Have you seen the evidence? Or is this just like a feeling?
I'm just kind of doing this logically in my head. Like, it just feels like a risk, right?
But
it's affirmation. It's not something that's encouraging or allowing behavior.
Yeah, but what's wrong with the behavior of a boy?
Saying it's like, you're a boy, you shouldn't wear that, or something like that.
I'm not following you. Like, I just don't understand.
Kyle, you said something interesting. I want to get to it in a second. Don't feel bad.
But Bal Diablo says, why don't doctors affirm dysmorphic anorexics people delusion/mental disorders? Because affirming anorexia has shown to lead to worse outcomes and death for anorexic people. While affirming gender has shown to alleviate symptoms and make them better, make them more able to function within society, make them succeed better in school and in personal relationship and in work settings, has shown them to self-report better life. That's why we use that treatment, because it's evidence-based medicine. It's not feelings-based medicine.
Well, I mean, a little bit. Everybody should look into the data, because I know that there are some that come out of activist organizations. I'm not saying that all of it's like that. I'm not saying that
My
all of your
sources
data is
come
bunk,
from
but I
Yale
know
School
there's
of
an awful lot
Medicine. Mine comes from Yale School of Medicine, Stony Brook University, which is where I went to college, got my degree from. That's where my evidence comes from. From the
Wait, you
text.
went to Stony Brook? That's so funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've been there.
Been to Syracuse.
Very cool. Yeah. Oh, you're just doxing me now. Okay, that's fine.
You don't have to
no
say
worries.
anything. Yeah.
No, it's, I don't think if I was silent, that would have really sent a different message. It's whatever. So you don't think that you think that there's basically no risk of affirmation trending somebody who would have grown up to not be transgender, but the affirmation leading them to be transgender? You
No,
don't think
because
that
most people, like you said, people it usually just goes away. So I don't think that affirmation leads in that direction. That would be like saying if you don't affirm it, it's more likely to go away than if you do affirm it. I don't know any empirical evidence to show that's the case.
Okay, so what about not affirmation from like parents just kind of shrugging and saying whatever? What if it's like therapists saying like your feelings are correct?
If you're going to therapy and the person, and it's like, what's happening in your life, and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm a girl. Okay. And why first of all, when you go to a therapist, you sit down, why are we here? Oh, I'm here because my parents brought me here because I feel like a girl. Do you have any issues in school? Are your grades good? Do you have friends? What is your mood? Right? If those are all good, go. What are you doing here? Like, why would there wouldn't be any treatment? There's no treatment option at that point.
Right, but even if they are suffering from these temporary problems, there's still a chance that they might grow out of it.
No, but if you're suffering
not.
from temporary problems, well, now you're the psychologist, right? And someone comes and sits here, they're like, I have anxiety, depression, I'm not doing well at school. People are right, and what's going on? Well, I don't feel like I'm a boy, and my parents don't trust me and listen to me. But people at school are bullying me because of it. What's the treatment method?
I'm not even going to say this guy's name. Well, the treatment method could be a variety of things. You could try to treat the depression or anxiety directly. I don't know.
Right.
What
You do.
Somebody
So
said
you
you should
do.
experiment with psychoactive drugs.
So you do.
Somebody said that.
I'll tell you what the treatment. You do cognitive behavioral therapy, which is usually effective for treating depression and anxiety. Yeah. You might do DBT if the anxiety is more prominent or less, right? You can do it. And then, because they are showing signs of transgenderism, you affirm the gender that they want to be called. That is the most effective treatment. If you're a doctor and you have a patient come in, you follow what the research shows you. You do evidence-based medicine.
I get that. But that third thing is where I'm going to push you, though, because those two things, you can have a somewhat effective treatment, and then you can have the third thing, which is also effective, but also might be steering the person into this category that they might not necessarily have to be a part of.
But CBT and DBT without gender-affirming care does not work for people who are transgender, or it works remarkably less. It doesn't seem to have longevity. It doesn't seem to work out better at the end. The research is pretty, like, I don't know what else to say. It's like you go to a doctor and
what are the stats on assistance between people who are given those two things and then are affirmed or are not affirmed? Is there a difference in desistance?
Desistance, define that for me. I just want to make sure I get the word right.
Just the kid growing out of it.
I mean, if the kid just grows out of it, then they just grow out of it.
Right, but again, what I'm saying is that if you get a therapist in the room and you're treating them for the anxiety and depression regularly, and then you do the affirmation, does that?
And what does affirmation mean?
I mean, you would know better than I would.
Yeah, it just means, if I'm sitting in front of you, I'm like, John, I feel like I'm a girl. I feel like I'm a woman. Affirmation means,
say, yes, me, doctor, authority figure, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Like 14-year-old.
Okay. Are you going to fight them on it?
No, I think you just remain neutral and just say okay, and then you don't say yes or say you're right. You remain neutral on that while treating them for the
and then they go everyone around everyone
until they're like 20.
Everyone,
and then whether or not
why wait till they're 20? Why wait till they're 20?
because until they're 20, there's like a 60
John,
to like
John, but you have, for whatever reason, I don't know where you got this idea from, that's an effective way of treating this problem, when the research says otherwise. It's just a matter of empirics.
I'm not saying it's not an effective way of treating the problem. I'm saying that in doing that, you might put them in a category that keeps them with that problem for longer than they need to. Because
Which
they might
problem,
be able to
John?
get rid of the problem
Which
on their own.
problem? Which problem?
The problem of being in the category of being transgender.
That's
or
not a
gender
problem.
dysphoria at all.
Being
Yes,
transgender is not a problem.
Still high.
Being
Even with
transgender,
therapy,
John, being
pre-post-op,
transgender,
pre-post-therapy,
John,
being in that category keeps you
not
higher
all
suicidality.
trans people don't all get surgery. Not all trans people have gender dysphoria. Not all trans people have gender dysphoria. If a person
Is it not the case?
If a person,
not the case that being in the category of being transgender, pre or post-op or pre or post therapy, you're still at a higher risk of suicide than people who are not in that category? Is that not the case?
Because people who are trans generally have all these other issues that come along with it. Just like if you're black, you're more likely to be poor, and if you're black, you're more likely to be whatever it is, a criminal. It doesn't mean that if you had a choice, if someone growing up black, you say, well, better off we keep them white rather than turn black or something. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't think that these are remotely equivalent ideas.
No, it's personally. Like the statistics don't cause directionality; they're correlative. It's not because they're trans they have dysmorphia. It's not because they're trans they're suicidal.
Well, quite frankly, it doesn't really matter because I don't know which way that, like, it's corollary, and we're not sure where the causal stuff goes.
They're pretty sure. So people are pretty sure
it's still a higher risk category. It doesn't really matter.
But usually it's because they're around people who don't affirm them.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure.
If you have,
buy that.
if you, but that's
and
you.
Even,
why
and
don't you
even
buy
if
here?
I did, even if I did buy that, you would still agree, you would still subvert that risk if you grew out of it and wound up being gay.
But if you grow out of it, then you were fine. You had the affirmation. You grew up. I just kind of had this idea. I didn't really have any issues. I'm not actually trans. I'm just gay. Okay, cool. Next.
Right, but again, I feel like I keep trying to articulate this idea, and I feel like it's not getting across. And
maybe I'm not understanding you. Let me try to understand you better.
That's really probably my fault. I'm trying to be as clear as I kind of can. The peanut gallery is very not happy with me for being genuine. I know it's very upsetting. If you are like a 14-year-old girl, and say, let's do the 14-year-old girl example. You're anxious and depressed, and the therapist gives you the things to treat the anxiety and the depression directly. And then when you say, I really feel as if I'm a boy, the therapist says, okay, I'm going to try to help you deal with the symptoms of that. But he doesn't directly say, oh, your feelings are correct. You actually are a boy because you feel that way.
No, are their feelings valider though, or not?
Well, are they? No, in this case,
so then you
in this case, the therapist.
Yeah, then you devalue their feelings.
In one case, the therapist validates the feelings and says, you are right to feel this way. This is really what you are. And in the other thing, the therapist continues to treat them in the other ways, even though I get that it's less effective in the short term.
Or the long term.
I get that. Well, in this, like, branching possibility, because I'm trying to show the two different possibilities here. He does not validate, and he just says, okay, I'm really sorry you're feeling that way. Let's talk about it. And then he just talks, and he doesn't affirm or deny anything, really. And
okay, so let's get my question. Okay, go ahead.
I'm moving to my question.
Okay.
Is in the case where the therapist does the affirming, is there going to be any difference in the level of desistance, of the level of that little girl either growing up to be gay or growing up to believe that they're trans and all the rest? Is there going to be a difference in that level of possibility based on whether or not the therapist affirms?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, well, my suspicion is that I think there might be a difference.
And what if there is a difference and they're more likely to think they're trans? What's the issue with that?
Well, it's an issue because it puts them at a higher risk category for suicidality.
No, it doesn't.
It puts them more out of. I mean, I think we just covered the fact that.
That's like saying that if I change my skin color to black, that makes me more likely to be a criminal and be in poverty. That's what you're doing.
Not really, because No, and the reason why that's not true is because race, like your skin color, has nothing to do with your mind, and this absolutely has to
And
do
your
with your
gender
mind.
identity doesn't have it doesn't have a direct cause to your mental problems, depression, anxiety. That's not how that works.
Well, it certainly does have something to do with you being less or more in step with society. It has to
Okay,
do with
true.
right,
So
and
what do
but
we
and I don't
do?
think
So what do we do?
no, we don't. You know what we shouldn't, we definitely shouldn't do is blow up all societal
No, who
standards.
said blow
That's
up? How about
probably what we
educate?
shouldn't
How
do.
about educate people and say, hey, when you meet someone who's gender non-conforming, just just let it be normal. Don't treat them differently. They're allowed to express their identity how they want to express, and we move on with our life.
Because when you say treat it as normal, what I hear is agree with them.
You don't have to agree with
As
anything.
the
Just don't treat them. Don't treat them differently. Don't treat them as if they don't have the same rights as everyone
so
else
ignore
around
the
them.
differences.
I didn't say you to ignore them politically, socially. Ignore them. Yeah. If
So ignore
if
so
I
don't
come to your work,
okay, but we
John,
agree that they are different because that's why you have like the little trans modifier before the actual
I
word.
mean, a trans
And
woman
you're telling me
is
that I should
no, a trans woman is
modify
different than a cis woman for sure.
okay, so you're saying that it's fine to
But
acknowledge the differences.
socially, you say I'm not interested sexually in trans women. Would you not be friends with a trans woman?
I can be friends with anybody.
Yeah. So what's the issue?
Well, I can be friends with anybody, but that doesn't mean that I don't treat them slightly differently based on who they
You
are.
should treat them differently. I'm just saying you shouldn't treat a trans woman like she's defective or she's an aberration or anything of the sort. She's just a trans
Well,
woman. Just like I don't treat males differently. I mean, I do treat men and males differently than I do treat females and women because there's these social expectations that I embody and I live with. Um, but other than that, equality under the law within society, within the workplace, within schools. People are going to be this way. That's okay.
so if I'm just understanding your position correctly, you're saying that you don't know if there's a higher possibility that affirmative therapeutic care is more likely to keep somebody from growing out of it. And your secondary position is like, I'm not sure, but even if it does, it doesn't matter at all. And it's just as okay or just as good or just as acceptable or just as safe to be somebody who is trans as it is to be somebody who's gay.
Yeah,
Like
there's yeah.
if I'm
Trans
understanding you
itself
correctly.
is not a medical problem. Being trans is not an issue. People can be trans and live long, healthy, happy lives. People used to think gay was some sort of issue that we should have not been gay because you could look at the statistics and people who were gay and out as gay suffered more from anxiety, depression, suicidality, and the like. But as society accepted homosexuality more, put it more into the mainstream, it became normalized and not considered aberrant, those significantly went down. And we see that approaching or even intersecting with levels of mental illness among straight people. So with that same logic, if we look at the statistics of homosexuality and whether that's aberrant and should be whatever not incentivized, that doesn't make any sense because we see the same trends.
So So what about the associations between being trans and all other issues, like not just depression and anxiety, but gender dysphoria as well directly?
Yeah, I mean, but that's a comorbidity. It's not the directionality here is right. We're not doing there's not causal collection. It's not like being trans
Are
causes
we
gender
are we
dysphoria.
sure are we sure that it's not causal, or do we
Yes,
just not know?
no. This is why the DSM literally split them apart when they moved from the
That that's
DSM-4
literally
to the
why.
yeah, because they're not
So explain it to me.
gender dysphoria is not a cause of being
Yeah.
trans.
No. I'm saying, but being in the category of being trans, like if you're trans, you're more likely to have gender dysphoria than if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not, right?
If you're a
Yeah.
woman, you're more likely to have anxiety disorder than if you're a man.
Sure. I'm sorry. I had something else to say. Shit, I lost it.
Okay, we were talking
It's very sad.
beforehand about I don't remember what we were talking about. We're talking about gender dysphoria. If you're a trans person, you're more likely to have gender dysphoria or something like that. And I
Oh
said,
wait, no, I remember now.
okay,
But before I say it, at risk of losing it again, Benson had a comment. He said, they may have a higher risk of suicide. The solution is not to make them submit to the fact that they are delusional, although they are evidently, according to Benson, with that phrasing, and must accept what they have been born into or society tells them they must do. I think that if their mental if their mental identity like persists, you shouldn't force them into it. My thing is that like maybe we should see if you can bring the mind more into a line with the body and society before you try to move the body in line with the mind, right? I think that if you can fix that, that would be the ideal solution. And then if that doesn't work for whatever reason, then okay. But that's kind of my position, right? I think it's better for the individual and
Do you
probably
think
better for society overall.
do you think people who are like gym bros and who like really want to get ripped and they hate their body, should we make their mind move more into line with their body, or make their body more aligned with their mind of what they want to be, what their norms are about how should act, what they should look like, how they should be received in society?
This is wrong order because they're editing their body first.
Who?
The gym bros.
No. I mean, I'm fat. I'm super fat. I'm obese as fuck. Okay? I hate my obesity. I don't like it. Would you tell me that I should change my mind to accept my body, or should I change my body to be in line with my mind of how I conceive myself and how I should be?
Well, obviously, I would say try to change your body, but the reason for that
is because obesity is unhealthy, right?
Correct.
Okay, now let's say you're trans, and you end up also suffering from gender dysmorphia, and your body is caught in the incongruency with your body after months and years of therapy still persists.
Right.
And
after
evident,
months and after months and years.
But that's already the case. There's no way for you to get surgery within like 2 months of seeing a psychologist.
What about hormones?
Well, hormones are for prepubescence can also, for adults, hormones are very hard to get. Just so you know, it's not easy to. You don't just show up and get hormones. It's not like, oh, you're trying, here's hormones. You go to a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and you make meetings and you talk to your general practitioners. Yeah, we can look it up.
Well, if I thought I heard a story. Keep talking. I thought I remember a story of something specific.
So, but when we look at children who are adolescents who are exhibiting specific symptoms, such like gender dysmorphia, and they have depression, remarkably low scores in grade or school, social, they're not able to be a part of society, right? They're not adapting to social environment. Hormones have shown to be an effective treatment to stave that off, so they can do the work and then start again later if they need to, or take hormone replacement therapy. Because the other direction is, the evidence shows that the other option leads to an increase in gender dysmorphia, depression, anxiety, and the such, and all the comorbid
and
issues.
It also may lead to an increase in desistance, but you just don't care about that.
We're talking about. I don't know, and I don't know if you know this. I don't know.
I said it may. I said it may. I don't know
but,
for sure.
But if we have, let's say, 90% of the time, this is the reality, what would you do as a parent? I mean, I don't know about you, but what would you do as a doctor? You'd be like, 90% of the time, it goes up, but there's a 10% chance that it's going to go away. What do you do?
If those numbers are actually real, sure, I'll go along.
I mean, so let's we can verify.
You're like the worst guy for me to have talked to about this. I'm not gonna lie.
It's okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. You just know way more about it off the top of your head than I do.
I have a degree in psych. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. Don't apologize at all. You have done nothing wrong, and it's been a good conversation. I just wish I had more with me in my head so I could get a better understanding is all. But yeah, like if those numbers are real, then like sure. If those numbers are real, then sure. I think the gym bro example is bad though. Like, would you not agree that like, or the obesity example, like I feel like you're probably making your body less healthy when you're putting it on hormones or puberty blockers or surgery. Like that feels like you're making your body less healthy to bring it in line with your mind, as opposed to bringing your mind into alignment with your healthy body. Like those aren't the same thing. I mean, right?
Sure, but what I'm saying is if you have a body that's making you mentally lose it, and the evidence has shown that, like, you know, getting a double mastectomy, like, what are really the big health risks of that? Seems to be all right. The treatment method seems to work for people. Then you do it.
Oh my God, Mace wants to do this Sunday. Okay, You can't do Sunday. I told him Saturday.
I mean, Mace. If Mace is alive, jump on Mace. We still have the time. Come on,
He
Mace.
said, I said Saturday. Like, I don't know what his deal is.
Well,
I
just
said,
talk
like,
to him. Talk to him. Talk to him. Don't get frustrated with him.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I think we probably talked about it, and I didn't tell him, so it's my fault. It's 100%.
Okay.
So I think we talked about it, and then like I announced it in the group tab, but I don't think I DM'd him personally. I just kind of figured he'd get the message. Yeah. I'm sorry. What were you just saying?
I'm just saying, like, there's a bunch of, like, I was just looking up different gender affirming care and like all the resources about it. I can send it to you if you're interested.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can find websites as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can just put it in the chat. Like, we just look up stuff about the efficacy of it. It works. I don't know what else to say. And it lines up.
Right. No, I'm not even telling you that it doesn't improve things. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think in my ideal world, we would do the type of treatment that allows for the maximum possibility of desistance, so that you won't even have to be treating anything.
Why?
So you won't have to treat anything. So,
but you don't. But gender affirming care makes you have to treat less.
Right, but you're still treating an issue, and then if
the issue goes, but the issue is likely to go away if they get the earlier the affirmation starts.
No, actually, the issue will continue. That's the point of the affirmation.
But what you do? You're doing this. You're committing the gay fallacy. You're committing the gay fallacy.
What?
It's a new. I just coined it right now. The gay fallacy.
This is not a fallacy.
In the 1970s and in the 1980s, you could look at statistics that being out and being gay meant you were more likely to have AIDS, more likely to be depressed, more likely to have anxiety, more likely to be in odds with society. So the idea would be if someone comes to you and goes, I'm gay, it would be better to try not to affirm their homosexuality, to let it go away and go under the wayside, because then they're less likely to have anxiety, depression, and the like. But that's not how that works. That's not how that works.
Well, first of all, I'm not just saying that. I think that it's a little bit of a false equivalence to say that it's all societally caused and not partially just due to what I think would be inherently distressing of feeling as if you're in the wrong body.
Yeah, and how would you remedy that?
I can talk about that first. I can talk about that for a second, but even divorced from that, I generally think it's better for society and better for the world if more people's minds are in alignment with their body as opposed to not that way.
If you could take a magic pill,
like I think it's just better for people's minds to be in alignment with their body. And if that's ever an option, I want to maximize the amount that's going to happen. And then if for the people that it absolutely cannot happen and you've already tried, treat them however you need to treat them. But I would never want to reduce the chance that their mind can come to alignment with their body. Because
if we could take a magic pill that will just eliminate trans people from society, would you do it?
Well, it depends on what you mean by eliminate.
Every single trans person will now, their identity will, their norms will match up with your norms. They will feel like they're in the right body.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
It doesn't hurt them. But if it doesn't hurt them,
but some people love to be trans.
Okay.
So should we eliminate them from being trans?
Well, if it's I wouldn't do it against their will. I'm just saying, like, if this was a thing that happened and like whenever kids felt this way, you could like, hey, you won't have to feel as if you're in the wrong body anymore. Here you go.
What if
like, but I wouldn't force it down anybody's throat.
But it's not always in the wrong body. Just I want to wear dresses. I want to do this. And but
at that point, then that's not what I define. That's not the way I'm using the word trans. Then,
but
that's just
transgender is. We're not talking about trans. This is an outdated term, by the way. Transsexual. We're talking about transgender. We're talking about gender. We're not talking about sex.
Yeah, I mean, like well, then I apologize for lumping those together. Like, if you agree like 100% that like, yeah, I'm a man, I'm in a man's body, I just like dressing up and acting like a woman.
Yeah. Most trans people,
weird, that's not really what I'm talking about.
Most trans people know they're biologically a male or biologically
right,
a
woman. But no. I mean, most of them will say that I know I'm biologically this.
I just want tits. Or I just don't want boobs. Or
right, but there's a difference between saying I want that and because I want it and it makes me feel good for whatever reason, or I want that because it's what I am internally in truth.
Well, that's
Those are
what they.
completely
Well,
different
that's
things.
what they feel they are. That's their truth. That's their subjective truth.
Yeah, I don't buy the subjective truth thing.
What do you mean? What is? Who are you?
Well, it's not me.
I mean, this is why I wanted
I'm
to.
not.
This is why I wanted to
I'm
bring.
just-
This is a big argument though I have with Orthodox Jews. Say Reform Jews aren't Jews. I go, why not? Like, well, they don't follow these commandments. Blah blah. They're not really Jewish. I'm like, yeah, but they believe they're Jewish. Like, no, but they didn't go through a Orthodox conversion. I was like, yeah, so what? They believe they're Jewish. And I'm like, yeah, that's their truth. This is their identity. This is what they believe it means to be Jewish. And then they respond, well, that's not really what it means to be Jewish. And we're stuck in the exact same spot. Because their truth, their identity, their truth, because if we agree that gender is subjective, which I'm sure you do, right?
Well, again, it depends on what you mean by gender.
What I mean by gender is in what I mean by gender, the Ganger spectrum.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then if a person, so if a person identifies as a woman, that's real. That's actually happening.
Well, it's real that they feel that way.
Yeah, that's their truth. Because
when you say the word truth, all of a sudden it becomes not about what they believe; it becomes about what is.
But gender is mind dependent. No,
kind of the difference between normative and descriptive. Like,
John,
it's true that they believe that.
John, yeah, but if gender is normative and is subjective, then the truth is subjective, and that person's truth depends on their subjective experience.
It's an unnecessary word that blurs the line between the two different understandings that we have of me saying things normatively like is versus like
you mean descriptive as opposed to normative.
Yeah. Right. And when you throw the word truth in there, it snaps me back to normative. Like
then we start getting into like different notions of truth and mind independent truth as opposed
to
mind
which is why we probably shouldn't like use the term your truth at all, because it's confusing and weird, and we should just say it's true that they believe that, and everybody will know what the hell I'm talking about.
Well, okay, fine. So
I transmit the meaning.
So when I say someone's truth, their personal truth, I'll just use this: their subjective experience. They're just like colors, like red, like right now.
Then you're just say that. Just say subjective experience.
What color is
my
this?
Truth is
what color is this?
Confusing.
What color is this?
It's purple.
Is that mind dependent or mind independent?
It's mind dependent.
Okay, is that your truth or is that that truth?
Well, I mean, my perception of it is mind dependent.
It is. Colors are mind dependent. They don't exist in the world independent of your mind. Right?
Sure, but
is it true that this is purple then?
Dude, like epistemology around like the subjective experience of colors is like confusing, and I don't understand it.
Well, it's similar to the gender. But I have a question from my chat. Someone wants to ask you a question.
Right, but again, using the term "my truth," I just feel like it's needlessly confusing when you could just describe it the way you just described it as like subjective experience.
Well, subjective experience is still true because the point of saying truth is to say it's not just because usually in day-to-day language and maybe
are there subjective experiences that aren't true?
No.
Okay, so then what the hell's the point?
Because we're talking about the
truth is in opposition to falsehoods, and if there is no option for falsehood when you're talking about subjective experience,
if I have an experience, that experience, because I could be lying about my experience, and then that would be a false experience.
Sure, but saying a subjective experience kind of implies that you're not lying, right?
I mean, how do you know someone's subjective experience? They report it to you. So if someone's subjective experience...
Again, I'm not rejecting your actual meaning when you say the term "my truth." I'm saying that like it's a really weird term to use that is confusing to people and was confusing to me.
Did my camera just stop working?
Yeah, your camera just died, bro.
I just bumped into my computer. I should be able to turn it on again. There we go. There we go.
Well, it's really my fault. I feel like an idiot. I don't really want to have to do this again tomorrow, but I guess we will.
No, it's okay. I mean, I can't do it tomorrow. I mean, only going to be later on because we have a family Memorial Day boat trip. There's an air show at Jones Beach where the Blue Jays pilots fly really close. So we're going to take the family boat, go park it out there, and just watch the air show for a bit. So
I'll tell you this off stream, but that's similar to something in my life. I'll tell you about it later.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's funny. If you kill yourself, here's one. I want to get your take on this. This is like a Matt Walsh thing.
But there's someone in my chat who wants to ask you a question. I've been ignoring it.
Please.
It's should an intersex person be treated as a man or a woman or both?
I think that they should basically decide. And the reason why that is because my normative description is you have to be male or female. That's a necessary but insufficient part of being a man or a woman. If you're intersex, you don't have one of those. And I think basically in that very limited circumstance, you should basically pick what you want to go with. And then you stick to it. And you have whatever. It's interesting.
What if they want to change it? Like 5 years down the line, they said, no, I don't want to be a man anymore. Now I want to be a woman.
I would recommend strongly against it. But again, they have an incredibly unique biological basis. Because I think stability is important in people's lives. And I think shifting stuff like that is generally not advisable, something so fundamental. It's interesting. Even Florida's new laws have this carve out for intersex people because they're in a state where their biology isn't like that. But again, it's because that their biology isn't like that gives them it actually doesn't give it to them. It actually necessitates that they have to exercise some kind of choice there. So that's kind of my position there. But nobody would argue that being intersex is like an optimal thing to be born as, right? I mean,
so long as you're not suffering and as you live a happy, healthy life, I couldn't care, honestly.
Do you think it comes? I think being born as intersex would come along with some inherent levels of distress and suffering.
It might be just because you're in the margins of society. But if society doesn't treat you as marginalized, then other than that, like, what's the issue?
Do you think it's all? Okay, hold on. Do you think that all aberrational physical qualities, the suffering that comes with them, it always comes from society? Do you think it can never come from
it depends.
Itself?
Listen, if I'm born with my heart on the outside of my fucking chest.
Okay, well, obviously.
So if I'm born, for example, if I'm born without an arm. I knew someone when I lived in Israel who their mom was in Chernobyl while they were pregnant. So he had like a tiny arm. His arm was like super tiny, and his hand ended here, and it was like all deformed. Causes no medical complications. Did it cause him suffering? Yes. Was he bullied in school because of it? Yes. Was I at one point complicit in bullying him in school with it when I was like a little 9-year-old? The answer is yes.
Damn, Don.
Now, exposed. Just facts of being a dumb 9-year-old. But
I thought we were supposed to treat 9-year-olds as really, really smart and affirm them. I was under that impression.
A 9-year-old is smart.
That was
9-year-olds know that when they're fucking up. I knew what I did was wrong. I just wanted to be a part of the in-group.
Okay, continue with your point.
One is that nothing about that aberration led me to believe that what's happening is harming. Like, there's no reason. All of his troubles are because of social forces. If I'm a boy and I decide that I want to put a dress on and wear high heels and put on makeup and play hopscotch with the girls, and I'm getting bullied from it, and I start developing these problems as arise from it, and then that issue is a social problem. There's nothing biologically that I've seen about trans people.
Really?
There's nothing biologically that we find in trans people that would tell us that they have some sort of medical issue that's causing them to be depressed and anxious.
As opposed,
because the evidence.
Okay, but gender dysphoria would fall into that category.
Gender dysphoria will happen because of their body, not in spite of it.
Right, but you would agree that gender dysphoria can occur even without societal pressure, right?
Because of their body.
Yeah.
If their body was different, they wouldn't have gender dysphoria. I can change a body. I can't change a mind.
You can't change your mind?
How am I going to go ahead and change your mind? What am I going to do? Give you medication that changes your... Therapy doesn't work that way, John. I can't just convince you.
Therapy and time. And then if they don't... Well, if you're talking about adults, then maybe you can't change it. But
okay.
When they're adolescents,
so we gotta... Let's pilot gender non-affirmation care. The opposite. The reverse affirmation care and see how that works. That doesn't work.
I wouldn't say
that doesn't work.
Wouldn't say reverse. I'd say just not like positively affirm for kids, but do everything else.
And then the evidence points out that when you don't positively affirm for kids, they end up having exacerbating symptoms, as opposed to
right. And we don't know if it might also increase desistance. I strongly.
Who cares if it reduces the symptoms? Who cares, John? If it reduces the symptoms, who cares?
Well, it's not just about the symptoms, Don.
It literally is about the system. Because if a person desists as they grow up, and they have,
aren't the only things I care about.
Then what are you caring about then?
Well, first of all, I know you're calling it the gay fallacy. I think that that's a little bit. I don't really think that comparison is super fair. But let's put that aside. Even if I was willing to forego all the symptoms, I think it's better if you have the option, if it's possible to do so. It's better for your mind and body to be in concert. It's better for society to have less aberrational instances for the sake of social stability. I
but
think
we're
it's
not.
better to
But again, we're
align
not just talking
with,
about people who are
what
trying
is
to change
naturally the case.
If a person has body dysmorphia,
I think it's just preferable. Like
if a person,
if it's possible,
if a person has gender dysmorphia and they want to be literally in a different physical body, and it just goes away as time goes on, that's fine. Does gender affirmation make them maintain gender dysphoria? What is the evidence on that? Long-term affirmation lowers gender dysmorphia.
Dysphoria or dysmorphia?
Dysphoria, the same. Gender dysphoria.
Is it the same thing? Okay,
I'm mixing up the language here. Dysmorphia, you don't use body dysmorphia. Gender dysphoria can have symptoms of body dysmorphia.
Right.
I see. Different, like all the different points, you need like 7 out of the 9 to categorize and get the.
Okay, Benson. I'm sorry, I was reading Benson's comment, which I think is the first supportive comment in the whole show. So I'm sorry. Say that one more time, just so I make sure I understand what you just said.
So for biology affirmation care, that's basically saying, oh no, your gender identity is not valid. What you really are is your biology, and if that worked, the evidence would show that that works. But that doesn't work, and that hasn't worked for a long time. Studies
it doesn't work at reducing the symptoms within the people who persist.
Within people who are in treatment, it doesn't help them. Whether it be 1 year, even longitudinally, that doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
And again, are we lumping in people? Or we're lumping in kids as well?
Adolescents as well. Yeah, humans, humanity, humans.
Within people who persist, because you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to like hammer you on this point to like show why I'm right. I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding you. I just want to clarify that that's still the case.
We're talking about from adolescents, children, all the way through adulthood. Listen, it is about symptoms because you are saying that if it persists and their symptoms might go up. So you do care about symptoms.
No, I'm not saying it's going up. I'm saying that they could go down to nothing if they desisted. But even pretending like that's not the case, because you just call it the gay fallacy, which again, I would challenge if I knew more, but I don't. So I'm just going to put that over to the side. I'm going to say that the other thing that's important that I think is good is to try to live in accordance with the norms if it's possible. I think it's better for the individual and probably better for society if there are less instances of aberration, if there are more instances of living within the norm, of living in concept.
I don't. I think what makes society beautiful and great is that we have these aberrations. We have the things that fall outside of the norm, and those who exist outside of the norm should flourish and be able to live happy lives. I agree
with this. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have differences or aberrations. It's actually dead necessary. What I'm saying is that, lights changed. What I'm saying is that if it's possible, that we want to make sure that the aberrations, there's not too many of them. And if you could, because then you get to the level of away from balance between the norms and the aberrational, you get to the point where there's too much and it gets unstable.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying that if there's an option
if too many women worked and had jobs and weren't dependent on their husband, that's going to fall outside of the norm and it's going to whack off the balance. It doesn't mean anything.
I mean, we do have the 2-income trap now, so there's that.
I mean, welcome to capitalism, getting more workers. What's new?
Well, capitalism is only informed by the labor market and the consumer habits, which are influenced by culture, which is kind of what I'm talking about.
Not necessarily, and the system itself influences culture to begin with and promulgates it and continues.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's cyclical to some extent, but I think it's semi-cyclical because there's cyclical pressures.
I think
there's cyclical pressures, but at root, your choice. I mean, if you believe in free will, your consumer choice is.
I don't believe in free. I don't even believe in rational. I think rational choice theory, which is the bedrock to all of modern society, it's a massive farce and a myth. I want to respond to Bal Diablo because he kept saying Charlie Zelenoff biology dictates his ability in the ring. His delusions about himself being a good boxer are objectively incorrect. Now, is it true that he believes he's a good boxer? Yeah. Am I going to say he's a good boxer? No, because we have objective, descriptive measures of what a good boxer is.
Would you say it's his truth that he's a good boxer?
Yeah, for sure.
Right, but notice how when you were talking about his subjective belief, you didn't say his truth. You said subjective belief.
Because I'm responding because we just had a conversation about that. I'm trying to be clear.
Right, I appreciate that. I'm saying that I think that in all circumstances, that's clearer to most people.
But the thing is that Charlie Zelenoff, being a good boxer, isn't a there's meritocracy. We measure that using specific things. Are you beating people in fights? That's what we mean when we say a good boxer, right? That's what literally the definition of how we go about figuring that out. Being a boxer is also not being a good boxer is also not a part of a person's identity. It's also not a part of. It's not a gender. It's like the dumb helicopter meme would blow my mind. I would get so mad at it. I'm an attack helicopter. Well, you can't be an attack. Attack is not even a gender identity. What do you mean? It's like.
Well, sure, I could wear a big cardboard costume and like attack people.
How is an attack helicopter a social construct that manifests and is a phenomena that exists in humans?
We have certain social association. We have certain social expectations of attack helicopters for them to be loud, for them to destroy things. There's ways that attack helicopters. The notion of attack helicopter isn't a gender.
Are you arguing with me right now that attack helicopter is a gender?
Are you making making a normative like imposition?
No, I'm making a descriptive one.
Why are you chopping off the very edge of the bell curve, Dandan?
I'm not chopping off the very edge of what? The concept of helicopter. Where's the gender role of helicopters?
It's in to be powerful and loud and destructive.
So, and that's a gender role? You identify as an attack helicopter, or are you being disingenuous?
I'm being slightly disingenuous because it's.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that part where I said, "Are you lying or are you not lying?" And we're talking about a liar now, and that's entirely different.
Right. Well, but okay, but let's like theoretically say that somebody was genuine. Right?
Someone was actually believed that they were an attack helicopter.
Yeah, just for shits and giggles, I want to make you like talk through this.
Sure. So if someone actually believes that they are an attack helicopter, say my gender identity is I have an attack helicopter, and ask them what does that mean, and they respond with, well, an attack helicopter is anyone who runs around with spinning blades and tries to fly, whatever it is they have, whatever ideas they have.
Destroys people and destroys the enemy.
I would first of all would have to say, does this persist in humans? Is there like an actual thing here, the gender identity of helicopter? And let's say we found out that millions of people identify as an attack helicopter, and not only that, there's like there's a real meaningful like idea and notion of what it means to be an attack helicopter, and this ideology has been like, then I would have to concede that the notion of an attack helicopter is a social construct, a form of behavior that is normative.
And if the treatment for affirmation was the same,
then I would do the treatment of affirmation because I'm going to follow the evidence.
So this is kind of like a stupid example, but it's actually kind of clarified our disagreement, is that I have a level of commitment to my normative beliefs and truth, and those beliefs and truth do not overcome the well-being in the individual. So I'm not going to say that this person who has been in therapy for 3 years and all non-affirmative care has failed and he's still suffering, I'm not going to say you can never affirm that person. What I am going to say is that you have the option of non-affirmation, especially in kids. Originally, you should generally trend to that because I seek normative truth as a value that it is better for people to be in line with than it is for them not to be in line with it.
And I guess the difference between me and you is that I'm not willing to take my normative truths and force other people to live by them. Make medical decisions by that and tell them that because you aren't in line with my normative truth, you're wrong. Or you should not be that way. Or we should create society in such a way that aligns with my normative truths about identity, which have shown to not work. Medically.
Well, there's like four different. Well, you've like put 4 different things in here that are just like not exactly true. I'm not saying I'm forcing anybody into it. I'm saying when they're like little kids, we make sure we leave the door open as wide as possible for desistance.
Why?
Leave that door open as wide as possible.
And you don't have an answer for that.
I just told you why.
No, you have a belief that might fix their transness because being being on the margins is bad because it's bad. That's your reasoning.
It's less than ideal.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Because living in concert with truth and the natural
That
order
is truth. The natural order is for people to be trans.
Not really. The
Yeah,
natural
you believe
order,
that you believe that identifying as trans is wrong.
I didn't say morally wrong. I said not ideal.
For society, you think it's if you could snap your fingers and eliminate trans people, I think that's what's good for society.
If it was consensual, sure, I wouldn't force it on adults.
No, why not?
I could snap my fingers and I would say, okay, going forward, no new children will feel gender dysphoria or will feel as if they are in the wrong body or will just generally be within normal gender expression, even though obviously you can still have tomboys and all that sort of stuff. If you gave me that option, I would do that.
I wouldn't. I would say people should just.
Well, and also here's the third thing.
I think that
here's the third
males,
thing.
little boy males who have XY chromosomes want to wear a dress and put on makeup and whatever it is. I want a society that lets them do whatever the fuck they want to do, and we are all gonna live together and enjoy ourselves and accept them for who they are. Without saying that because it's outside of the bell curve, because it's outside of the norm, I instantiate that as good. And if you're outside of it, I don't want that. I'm not gonna do that.
Well, again, there's 3 different things in that
No, there
isn't.
To stop you. No, there isn't.
I'm not.
I think I wouldn't want to snap my finger and stop that because
you said if the little boy wanted to. I'm saying that if I wouldn't.
You wouldn't even give them the option to want it. You would say no one from this point will have the option to want to be different.
Well, they just won't want it.
Yeah, they will not even have the option.
Yeah, so I think the real disagreement is that I don't think that the normative values and truths that I'm espousing are just subjective things from me. I feel like I'm just recognizing what they are because I don't believe in moral relativism. And I think that's kind of getting that root at what we disagree with here.
You believe that it's objectively good for people to be in line with society's norms?
Not one-to-one, not in lockstep. I think there needs to be variance, but
give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I got a food order coming, I think.
Oh God. I'm gonna read a comment here. Benson says, I see your point on mental well-being, John. Thank you.
Let me finish this up and we'll go. Okay, yeah. I got you. We've been here for a while. Okay. I got you.
We're finishing up?
I got friends who want me to. I committed to things, and it's been a while, so we gotta wrap this up.
Oh Jesus! I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
No, it's not. I totally lost track. I was having a good time having a discussion.
I think it's generally good for people to try to assimilate to the norms of society. I think it makes them happier in the long run, as a general rule. And I would never overrule somebody's will. I would never make it lockstep or never get tyrannical with it. All I'm saying is that when you are a child and when you are still developing, I wouldn't want to close the door to social assimilation. I would want to leave it open as possible. And then if it's decided that you're never going to want to go through that door, then whatever. But that's kind of where I am. And I don't feel like I'm in a crazily unreasonable position here.
I don't think again, we're talking about values and obviously I think
that's what it ultimately comes down to.
Yeah, but I think that the place that you are,
Nivik, I never said that. Don't ever be yourself. Don't value uniqueness. You are really not listening to me if you think.
I think that what's great is that we should, as a society, see people's uniqueness and recognize it as something worth valuing, and letting those differences grow and shine, and people express themselves how they want to be, and falling outside the norms. Having these changes allows us for survival, homeostasis through change, and to try to assimilate people into the norm is a way of pigeonholing society, pigeonholing humanity, and creating a homogenous block that just does its thing. I would rather design systems.
I'm not saying.
I'm not saying what you're saying. I'm saying what I'm saying. I want to design.
And I actually agree with that.
I want to design systems that flatten the bell curve and allow this desperation to cooperate, live, and grow as one. That's what I care about.
Flatten the bell curve?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely against that part. I don't think that's in concert with human nature at all, but that's just me.
No, I'm not. As long as the bell curve is artificial. As long as the bell curve is artificial.
Right. And a lot of the times it's not. I'm sure you would agree with that a lot of times it's not. But the last thing I'll say is that I'm not forcing anybody into the norm. I'm saying that we should make sure that we're not pressuring or influencing or guiding children outside of the norm. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying leave that door as open as possible so you make sure you're not pulling somebody outside of the norm more so than it's dead necessary. That's kind of my thing. And again, you sent me the link and I'll look into all that. I would really love a study that shows levels of desistance. I don't know if we're ever going to get one because of
usually the problem with measuring desistance is that it's post hoc, like, oh, did you feel these feelings when you were a kid? Yeah, I did. Right. It's not, from what we know about children. Yeah. It's like when people say, when they come out as gay in their 40s, to go, I always knew it was gay. And even if they denied it in their 30s and 20s, they still were that. So a lot of time the desistance is people being like, yeah, I like to dress up, but it's not worth the headache to deal with them. So I don't really care about this. I grew out of it. It's a way of like becoming an adult, it's just one of those things like, oh, I wanted to be a musician when I was young. I grew out of that. The truth is, John, if you told me right now that I could go work my life playing music, I would jump on it in a second. But I grew out of it.
It's not remotely the same category.
I think if I wanted to be, if I could dress like a woman and wear high heels, I wouldn't do it. I don't want to, but some people, if they could do that, they would absolutely go for it. I had a conversation with Colin a few months ago with someone who was in their 50s. Said I present as a man, whatever it is, but I always wanted to be a woman. It's just I'm at that age where it's like not even worth it. But if I grew up today, I would have definitely been wanting to do this. They just couldn't do it.
And you think that person is worse off now than if they had done that?
Yes. Statistically showing, yeah.
And if you think you generalize that to all people who have ever had that feeling,
I don't generalize. I follow the science and the empiricism. I don't generalize that. I'm not generalizing that. I'm simply saying people who get gender.
I'm saying you in the royal sense. I'm asking you the question. I'm not saying that you're saying this. And if one was to generalize that to all people who have ever felt that way, who eventually grew out of it and got with the norms and are, happy in a traditional way, if everybody did that, you think society would be better for it?
If everybody
who was like that man, who grew out of it, but you're saying like not really, if everybody never grew out of it and they went for it as a kid, you think that would be better?
Yes, so long as we're willing to accept them and let them function in society, yeah, for sure.
Right. I kind of have a last question about this. It's kind of like a Matt Walshy point, but
okay, last question. Then I have to go.
So Matt Walsh's one of the things that he has said that is kind of like surface level appealing, but I'm not sure is true, is kind of like, if there was such massively high rates of suicide among kids for not being affirmed, then why is there not like massively high suicide rates historically throughout all of time up until like basically around now when we started affirming? Because you would have expected that.
Okay. I can explain this. Suicide. I'm
curious what your answer is.
Because when we're, let's say this is like if we categorize someone based on specific verbiage, ontology, the foundation of how we even categorize how to categorize these notions, to take someone who's trans and attach to suicidality for many, many years, before you even trans, you had to go through the ringer. Like, to be considered trans, you would need pretty like dysphoria, all these different categories to even be diagnosed as trans. And you look at those statistics from the DSM-4, which is only got changed like 5 years ago or something like that to the DSM-5. You look at all of those distinctions. That sample you're looking for is a sample size of people who are already suffering from so many things. Because being trans it used to mean having these psychological ailments and no longer does mean having these psychological ailments. You're seeing a reduction in like, it only makes sense now that, all these kids who are trans technically are not suicidal and they just still need affirmation because they weren't going to kill themselves. They were just going to have anxiety, depression, whatever it is, and move on.
Right, but shouldn't have suicidality been going down now that there's more affirmation? And if that's the case, why? Right, but even historically speaking, like, is there examples of large amounts of kids in like the past killing themselves over not being affirmed? Like, do we have a record of
what do you mean?
That?
I mean, there's no one has been identified as trans. No one measured it, John. That's what I'm telling you. It wasn't even measured. No one measured trans kids. No one measured.
Did they measure suicides?
I mean, yeah, of course they measure suicide.
And so you think that it does show up there?
We know. I mean, suicide has been going up since the 80s. In general,
right? The idea is that if you need affirmation to lower suicides, why do we not see a higher suicide rate in the past than we do now because of the lack of
Well, people
affirmation?
weren't even being people were killing themselves and not being considered trans, but we are seeing that gender
Right,
affirming
but it doesn't
care.
matter the categorization,
Yeah, but but for people who
overall
are
suicide.
John, for people who are trans today in the last 10 years, they get gender affirming care, they're less likely to have these issues.
Yeah.
That's all we need to see. That's it.
Right, but I understand that that's your argument, but that's just kind of the question.
You're asking me, is there evidence from the 60s showing a higher suicidality of trans people? There's no.
No, not just trans people.
The
I'm saying that
suicidality.
even uncategorized suicides in the past, you should be able to track a decrease based on the affirmation.
But suicides have been going up regardless, even without accounting for trans people.
Right, they've been going up.
Yeah, and because we have a mental health issue, a crisis in this country.
Right.
Now, but it's not due to gender affirming care, because that shows a decrease.
It's not due to. Okay, so what you're saying is that basically the decrease in suicidality basically gets buried under the increase due to other things.
I mean, so sure, yeah. Really I mean, the studies show that gender affirming care lowers depression, anxiety, suicidal, gender dysphoria, dysphoria, etc. Sure. But I do have to run. I do have to run. People are waiting for me.
Okay. All right, I'll see you.
I mean,
I will say that I think part of the increase in suicidality is an increase in a lack of social guidance and just general societal chaos.
I mean, I would agree with you. I think it's actually individuation. There are interesting studies about like level of mental illness among teens in suburban neighborhoods, whereas in rural and urban seem to function really well. And a lot of the hypothesis is because there's no community anymore. People are individual in their own homes.
So no more social fabric. We've become atomized.
And
it's gross.
If last word before I have to go, and this might trigger a lot of people, I think that is literally because of profit-driven housing markets. But it's a whole other thing.
Well, it's definitely because of housing problems. I don't know if it's. I think.
Well, why do we have suburbs? Why do we have suburbs? We have suburbs specifically because they were developed as a whatever. We're getting to a whole different point. But John,
rent control doesn't work. Yeah, BlackRock stocks.
I mean, rent control. Hey, economists have been saying probably the second worst thing to do than dropping a meteor on a city is doing rent control. That's 100%
true.
A fact.
Base take.
That's a fact. Take. Anyhow,
and I'll throw you a bone. We should probably break up BlackRock because it's buying up stuff and raising prices.
No problem.
So I've been supportive.
Of course. Okay, also, cool. What is another one? Break up big tech. Break up social media companies. They're too monopolized. Also, Netflix is an oligopoly. Get rid of it. We gotta.
I don't even know what that means.
It means there's no competition in the streaming market because they're not providing better services. They're acquiring properties rather than actually making a product, which is another whole different thing.
Well, you could say that there's competition based in like download speed in terms of the properties that they have available.
I mean, there's so many cool quality of life features they don't give us. Anyhow, I gotta go.
Okay, well, I'll see you.
Thank you, everyone. For those in the chat, I'll put a link to my YouTube channel. I'm streaming right now. Come subscribe. For those who are watching me, John has a YouTube channel. Go subscribe.
Yeah, we're very based over there. Dandan is surprisingly secretly based. Not really, but about random things that I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, I mean, you'll never catch me being a libtard. That's what I always tell people.
Yeah, well, that's appreciated. Yeah. We have a final word when you're not here. It's gonna be great.
No.
I think all chat is against me though, so good job.
Perfect. I swayed the chat. I did it. Anyhow,
no, I filled in for Mace. I didn't want to. I thought that I made it.
Well, honestly, this was a much better conversation than one I think I would have had with Mace. Sorry, Mace, if you're watching. I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay. We'll do it tomorrow. Or
hopefully we can.
I don't know.
Hopefully we can.
I mean, it's kind of like a lot of time being taken out of my weekend. I got stuff to do. We're going 3 days in a row.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully we'll figure
it out. But yeah, no, sub everybody. It's important. It's good.
Peace out.
Yeah, but as Dandan said, I think you can go or you can stay.
Okay. Peace.
The fundamental disagreement is on values. I don't think it's good to overrule what people want. I don't think it's good to force adults into things. But I do think that when possible, it's preferable for people to.
Well, that was fun. Yeah, that's what that was like. a nice little discussion on gender. I hope you guys enjoyed it, whoever's watching. Dark has the biggest eggplant. He might have the biggest eggplant. I'm pretty sure he does. But it was nice talking to everyone, talking to him. I think it went well. I think I made the argument for trans care and why it's so important. And hopefully I educated some people with this podcast / live stream thing. Well, anyhow, peace out, everyone. It's been great. I will upload our discussion from yesterday if you're interested in watching it about dog whistles later on today. But other than that, have a good night, everyone. And as always,